If you're a Texas landowner and you're interested in improving the quality of the genetics on your ranch, you can contact me at deerandwildlifestories.com. Howdy everybody, welcome to Deer and Wildlife Stories. My name is Keith Warren, and on today's program, I'm going to introduce you to a couple of young deer farmers that are really making a name for themselves right here in Texas. Hey, get out of that bucket. I know they're good, huh? Hey, quit it. Quit it. You gotta have some for her. Here you go. Trick or treat. As a deer hunter, I want to know all I can about America's favorite big game animal. That's why I became a deer farmer. Without deer farms, we lose our greatest resource for research and whitetail management. With them, we gain more knowledge than ever before. Join me as we discover the truth about whitetails and meet those who work every day to preserve this great species for future generations. My name is Keith Warren, and this is Deer and Wildlife Stories.
My name's Jesse Boger. I'm with Limitless Genetics. We're located in Schulenburg, Texas. We're about halfway in between San Antonio and Houston. We're an hour and a half from each of those. We have 42 acres. We're right about 32 enclosed pens. We have about 300 deer total right now. The goal is to raise big frame deer with pedigrees that are unmatched and try to compete in both the breeder market and the hunting world.
Okay, so Jesse told me that they basically got two different facilities.
Yes, sir.
Yep. And this facility, when you take a look at these deer, you'll see these are awesome deer. This is the breeding facility. So
correct.
Tell everybody about how many 2-year-olds do you have out here?
We got about 25 right now, 2-year-olds, and we got a couple we're pretty excited about.
The thing, I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking you've got to have some gunslinger influence in there, it looks like.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of gunslinger. We got 4 gunslinger 2-year-olds, all with pretty good bomb sides. They're all pretty framey deer with the right look, and got some long tines, and he really helped me clean up my herd a little bit.
Yeah, well that's good. Tell me, like that guy with the long brow tines, I mean he's got 12-inch brow tines. Who's he out of?
He's gunslinger on G-Hammer on 892. 892 goes back to Easy Money and Dream Buck. She's a powerhouse though. She's already produced a few breeder bucks herself. So that production's down there right at the anchor spot. Okay,
but as we look at these deer, tell everybody where these deer are going to wind up. I mean, this is the breeding facility.
Correct.
So where are they going to wind up?
The end goal is to get all these deer into other people's breeder buck pens and use them as breeder bucks. We're trying not to stock with these. We built these on pedigrees, and they produce the looks that we were looking for. So we think they got a good shot at breeding at other people's places. So we're going to sell them to other breeders to hopefully improve their genetics.
Okay, so when the other breeders are interested, they typically would come out in late August, I would assume, mid to late August, to take a look at what you got.
Yep, correct.
Okay, I mean, I tell people if you're going to come out to a deer farm, try to do it in mid to late August, and the reason why is because deer push every day up until about middle of August, and they kind of start slowing down. But these are some awesome looking 2-year-olds. So, okay, you got 25 of them, you thinking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Out of how many of these, how many of them were AI?
Ooh, probably 75% of them.
Really?
Yep.
So you AI 100% of your does, don't you?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah. And then you cover them how many days later?
About 2 weeks, 14 to 17 days usually.
And so you're lapping?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they are surgically impregnating the does. And then what they'll wind up doing is come back in a couple of weeks later and they'll put a cover buck, what they call it, a cleanup buck, for the does that did not take. But 3/4 of these 2-year-olds that you're looking at right now were strategically planned. I'll put it that way. They look at the paper, or the pedigree, if you will. They put it together and say, that's who we want, and that's who they are, and they're beautiful. Man. Okay, so how many yearlings you got?
About the same, 25 to 30, usually stay in that range.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at them. But before we do that, give everybody a phone number if they want to come out here and take a look at the deer.
You can call me at 281-330-9519.
And folks, when I pulled up to the gate, I got to tell you something. My place is only an hour and 10 minutes from here. I didn't know this place was here. To be honest with you, of course, I'd heard of Jesse, but I did not know that the facility this big was here, and especially with deer like that. So if y'all are in this area, right outside of Schulenburg, Texas, get a hold of Jesse. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at what you find out. He's got some big old deer. Let's go take a look at some yearlings now.
Yes, sir. We're open to farm tours. We also do a lot of shows through TDA and DVC, and we've even started to go up north and work on some shows within a DIFA and stuff like that. You can come see us at our booth. We're always open for visitors to come by and check everything out, ask any questions and whatever you might need or thing. We try to accommodate to everything. So.
The Deer Farming Channel is brought to you in part by Record Rack Deer and Elk Feeds.
All right, so I'm going to have you help me out here. This is from William. He's from Louisiana. It says, your show is the best program on the internet about deer, and it's helping me learn to be a better deer manager. I've watched your shows and noticed that while some farms have a gentle herd, others have herds that are more jacked up. Why is that? Answer that, please.
I mean, it's solely the time that you spend with them. I mean, honestly, there is times and places for real gentle herds and real calm herds. Just for here, right here on our farm, that we like them gentle. But it just has to do with time. That's all it is.
The way I say it, the way you spell love is T-I-M-E, and it works for deer
exactly
too. So,
right.
William, that's a great question. If y'all have any questions you want to get a hold of me, head on over to our website and hit the Connect with Keith tab. It's real easy for somebody that's been in the deer industry as long as I have been to be able to tell somebody's got a lot of time spent in their pens. And what I mean by that, just take a look at the way the deer act. If the deer are just flighty as can be, running and scared all the time, almost all the time, that deer farmer doesn't spend very much time with the deer. But if the deer are calm and gentle and they're not flighty, more than likely they spend a lot of time with them, and that's a good thing. Okay, so these are yearlings, and I'll tell you what, I'm looking at that guy right there is unreal. I mean, he's got to be 21, 22 inches wide inside, maybe more. I'm real conservative. That's a big deer. Who's it out of?
That's a Brain Freeze over Express, Easy Does It, Free Agent, Green Buck Orange Tree 12. We're pretty happy with him.
Oh, you ought to be happy with him, but okay. Is that Brain Freeze back there all cut off?
Yes, sir. Yep, that's him.
And he is now how old, 4?
He's 4 this summer.
Okay, so tell me his pedigree.
He's a freeze frame, max stream, high roller, green buck, orange tree 12.
Okay, and folks, there's 5 partners on that deer right there.
Our main breeder buck here that we focus all of our attention to is Brain Freeze. It's actually kind of a cool story. We actually bought his mom at a DVC sale for a lot of money, and it came with the option of breeding her. And we chose freeze frame, and we got triplets out of her. It just so happens one of those triplets became Brain Freeze. We got 5 partners with Brain Freeze, and we've just kind of gradually grown with him. And we think of him as one of the top bucks in the industry right now. So that's our showcase buck. We have his first set of yearlings this year, and we're very happy with the frames we're putting on. We think he's got a good shot at becoming one of the better producers out there as well.
Antlers grow so fast in these bucks, and as we're showing them to you, keep in mind that typically these antlers are growing in about 120 to 150 days, and that's remarkable. The bigger the antlers get, the harder they are for those deer to carry without getting nicks on them. Nicks will cause antler infection. Antler infection can cause death. And it's for that reason when some of these deer get so big and they do have a problem with their antlers, many times we just knock them down and cut those antlers off.
Right.
And the reason why they have partners on that deer is strategic. Tell them why.
It gives us 5 people to market them, so it takes up a lot of the responsibility from one person and spreads it out evenly, and it lowers risk for all the other breeders to jump in, and gives faith to other breeders that we're going to push this deer, we're going to run with him, we're going to give it all, give him our best.
Okay, so but you got pictures of him then before you cut him off?
Correct, yes sir. We had Dan Verrips come out and take a few pictures beforehand.
Cool. Okay, this guy right here, he's got a lot of horn, but he's got a little body. What is the deal on him?
So a lot of the way we like to breed is we like to line breed and then outcross. Well, when you line breed, you're usually hoping for a doe, and every now and then you might get a buck. And when you do that, you lose some of the characteristics you're hoping for. So sometimes they usually get a little gnarly, and they're usually really tight.
All right, well, he is tight and he's gnarly, but I'll tell you one thing. I mean, if he's that tight bred, he's got a sister?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Oh, see, that's what you want. Explain to people why you do that. Because, I mean, I tell people, like, when you tight breed or you line breed, some people may call it inbreeding, and it is, okay? But tell them the reason you do that.
In the hopes that we're trying to get does out of it, and then we outcross those does, and for some general reason, I'm not sure the exact reason, it just helps them produce bone a lot faster and creates a different look when you outcross them.
You know, when you start taking a look at some of these pedigrees, you're going to notice the same deer appearing over and over and over. You know, you've got some legendary sires that everybody has used. And so what happens is that they get tighter and tighter and tighter when you look at these pedigrees. And what he's talking about is an outcross. Take something that doesn't have anything in that pedigree, but it's also proven in another pedigree, and put it in there, and that's when you're talking about growing some massive bone real quick.
Right.
So, okay, you got some great 1-year-olds. If somebody wants some information about coming out here and taking a look at any of your deer, give them a phone number.
281-330-9519.
I'm going to ask you a question. You know, we're sitting here looking at these bucks. We showed you the 2-year-olds. We're showing you the 1-year-olds right now. The does. You've got the sisters and the mothers to these deer, right?
Correct. Yep.
Are they for sale?
Everything's for sale. Everything's got a price.
All right. So if y'all want more information, get a hold of Jesse Boger, and we'll have a direct link off of our website to Limitless Genetics. And we come back, we're going to be heading to Pinnacle Whitetail.
If you're in Texas and interested in becoming a deer farmer, you can contact me for deer farming franchise opportunities right here in Texas at deerandwildlifestories.com. One thing I like to do every single morning is to come into the pens and check my deer, every deer. What I'll wind up doing, get in my side-by-side and take a good pair of binoculars and just make sure in every single pen that every deer looks good. If I have a deer that's off to the side, laying by itself, ears down, then I'm going to go ahead and tend to it. If I have a buck with a broken tine, I'm going to go ahead and tend to it. But this is a morning ritual for me. Every morning, get a good pair of binoculars, drive through the pens just to make sure everybody is fine. And we do this several times a day, but it's really critically important to do it first thing in the morning. Like I say, this is just really good therapy. Just another day on the farm. So on this part of the show, we're at a different deer farm. We left Jesse's and went 5 miles down the road to Pinnacle Whitetails.
My name is Connor Corporon. I'm with Pinnacle Whitetails, and we're located in Schulenburg, Texas. We have 26 acres of pens. Right now we have 36 pens, and we're running about 300 deer. I've been raising deer for 5 years, and I got started because we saw a business opportunity and we decided to take it.
I don't know of a better business there is to get into that you want to do things with your family than a deer farm. And right here at Pinnacle Whitetails, it's an entire family business.
Pinnacle Whitetails is a family-run business. It's not just me, it's also my father, my stepmom, and my fiance. I pretty much handle the day-to-day operations. My stepmom handles all the bottle feeding. As far as feed goes, we feed record rack. I just haven't seen a feed that compares to it in the industry today. Everything from our day-old fawns up until the oldest buck that lives in the pens gets record rack. The goal at Pinnacle Whitetails is to grow the best pasture-release deer that we can. To grow big and healthy deer, genetics carries the majority of the weight, but nutrition is a close second, and that's why we feed record rack.
Now that's my kind of deer right there. Yeah, boy, that's a pretty buck right there. Mm-hmm. All right, so what you're looking at now are 1-year-old bucks, and I can tell you right now, they're beautiful. I mean, across the board, they really look good, and you know, I wound up normally needing my binoculars, but out here at Connor's place, I don't need binoculars. At Jesse's place, I didn't need binoculars either because the deer come up real close. What is your biggest tip to tell people? How do you get the deer to be so gentle?
Just time. The more time you spend in the pens, the better. We bottle feed a little bit here, but actually, from what you're seeing, they're almost all the bucks aren't bottle fed. So,
yeah, I think I tell people that they tell somebody's got a good bird dog, they spend a lot of time with them.
Exactly right.
Time is the same thing as love to me. But as we look at these yearlings, I think, you know, this guy right here, I mean, he's exceptional. I know every one of them is. I mean, this is a breeding herd. This is not a stocking herd, if you will. This is a breeding herd. Every animal that you see here has been bred to be a breeder. Okay, and so while some are better than others, I mean, they've all got really, really good papers. So tell me about, pick one of these out that you really like.
I really like that guy right there.
Okay.
He's actually a G3 son. He's not the biggest yearling in the pen, but I've really high hopes for him at 2.
I like the shape of him. I mean, he's got a really good frame and all. Now, how many years you been doing this?
Right at about 5 years now.
Okay, now as you take a look at all these yearlings, you know, on this part of the program, I mean, earlier in the show, we went over to Jesse Boger's, and Jesse has got some unbelievable deer. They're friends. Matter of fact, they're partners on a lot of deer. And, you know, they're young guys, and that's the cool thing that I think about the industry. I mean, we're attracting younger people, but in 5 years, he's been able to grow deer like this. And the reason why is because he started out with really good pedigrees. And so, address that, the reason to start out. I tell people, start out with quality over quantity in a day.
100%. If you don't start with a good production type herd on the bottom, quality over quantity, those genetics will be in your herd for, you know, the rest of eternity unless you just start over. So you just have to start with a good herd to begin with.
So Connor, if somebody wants more information about coming out here and taking a look at your deer, give them a phone number.
It's 281-635-7729.
And they are located just outside of Hallettsville, Texas. And these 1-year-olds, they're beautiful, but now we're fixing to show you some 2-year-olds.
The Deer Farming Channel is brought to you in part by New Dart, leading the industry in accuracy.
We're fixing to show you all some big deer. All right, so we're fixing to show you some 2-year-olds, some big 2-year-olds. All right, so 2-year-olds, and look out across here, and I mean, you've got some fantastic deer, but there's one in here, there is no way that's a 2-year-old. That yellow tag buck, who is that?
That's Remedy. He's actually 7 this year, so he's the old man at the place.
Yeah, but I mean, look at him. That deer right there, he's made a name for himself in the industry.
He has. We can't be happier to have him in our pens, and you know, we're still breeding and covering with him every year.
Okay, so you're covering with him.
Yes, sir.
But I'm looking at some of these other guys. I mean, who is that really great big wide buck right there?
That's 7014. He's actually a free agent 2-year-old we have this year.
Seriously?
Yes, sir. He's free agent over a pure Texas doe.
You know, I'm blown away at how gentle the deer are. I mean, when you start taking a look at all the 1-year-olds we just showed you, now all these 2-year-olds, I mean, they are some kind of gentle. So if you're looking at getting in the deer business, what I would encourage you to do is deal with people who have gentle deer. Gentle deer are healthier deer because you can get your eyes on them, you can get your hands on them easier, and boy, these are really, really gentle. But who's this other big buck right here?
He's a gunslinger son. He's a gunslinger 2-year-old. So I'm real happy with him this year as well. We'll probably hold him and see what happens next year.
I'm telling you, that is a giant.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so all right, so you're looking at all these 2-year-olds, and if you want to come out here, you want to come to look at some great big bucks, you need to give Connor a call. Give him a phone number.
It's 281-635-7729.
Question, is everything on the farm for sale?
Everything's for sale, it's just not on sale.
Okay, all right, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go take a look at some 3-year-olds next, and I want to point out that that he has kind of a different strategy when it comes to a couple of the 3-year-olds. He's got 3-year-olds that are in pens with does and fawns, and we'll tell you about that in just a second. So how do you grow big deer? Really, how do you grow big deer? Well, you got to start with big genetics. You know, any deer hunter knows that in order to grow big deer in the pasture, it takes age, nutrition, and genetics. Well, you know what? It takes the exact same thing when you're growing big deer in a breeding program, except for you change the way those are in order. And what I mean by that, it starts with genetics, then nutrition, and then age. All right, so we're in the 3-year-old pen, and I want to know who that guy is right there.
That's Reactor this year.
Look at that, folks. A buck named Reactor, and a little while ago, we heard the term Rockin Chair Beams, and I think Reactor is a perfect example of Rockin Chair Beams. So tell me a little bit about him.
He's our big breeder this year. He's actually an ambush son. We're really excited about him, the partnerships that we have on him, and we're excited to see his future.
Well, he's a great looking deer. Now, folks, we wound up, as we're showing these 3-year-olds to you, I want to point out that he's got a couple of other big 3-year-olds too, and he's got them in with the does. And the does wind up, you may be thinking that's unusual, because most of the time when the cover bucks get done with the does, they get pulled out and then they get grouped back up with the bucks. But tell them how come you wind up leaving these particular 3-year-olds in with these does.
We wanted to see how it worked out this year, and so far we're happy with it. In my opinion, it's less stress. You don't have to touch the animals again. Just leave them where they're at and let them live there all summer.
Wow, that's pretty awesome right there. So, all right, once again, before we leave the show, I want you to tell everybody your phone number in case they want to come over and visit.
It's 281-635-7729.
You know, one of the cool things about this program today was the fact that we got to go to 2 new deer farms that we'd never been to before. And the real interesting thing is they're both run by young men that are very successful in the deer industry. So that just goes to show you that you don't have to be an old timer to be raising some great big white-tailed deer. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Head on over to our website and hit the Connect with Keith tab. My name's Keith Warren, and thanks for watching Deer and Wildlife Stories.